Another day and another failure by the carney. Failure to keep Canadians safe. I was just reading a story, something I never considered before. Never even crossed my mind that when police conduct an investigation that results in, say, like seizure of a drug lab or something, in this particular case, specifically, the super lab that the RCMP broke up in Falkland, BC, that turned out to be the largest drug super lab in Canadian history, producing mainly fentanyl. Somehow, despite being the largest super lab in Canadian history, still to this day, only one person has been arrested in connection with it. He was Gagandeep Randhawa, I think is the name. Yeah, Gagandeep Randhawa. Anyway, after the police did their investigation, everything, cataloged all of their evidence, they're left with this property. And I didn't realize this, but it's the RCMP's responsibility to clean up the property and make it safe. They need to remediate everything, which includes safely gathering up all of the toxic chemicals that are used to manufacture fentanyl and safely dispose of them, remediate the property, like the environment itself, from the damage of dumping waste chemicals and everything just into the soil. So that all has to be scooped up and taken away and cleaned or disposed of safely. And just this super lab alone, the RCMP, according to an assistant commissioner Taboul, said that the bill is $3.6 million. $3.6 million. So you think about that for a second. The RCMP conduct this investigation that was months long, if not years long. They make a massive bust. They get who knows how much deadly chemicals off the street and out of circulation in fentanyl, saving tens of thousands of lives, possibly. Okay. And their reward is a $3.6 million bill that has to come out of their budget, which means that's $3.6 million less that the RCMP has to spend on more investigations like this. It's $3.6 million less that they have to put toward investigating trafficking of illegal weapons. $3.6 million less that they have to put forward to trafficking young girls and women, because they have to pay to clean this property. Now, the BC government, this is one of Dweeby's favorite things to do, is seize everything, which I don't disagree with. If you're a bad person and you've done bad things, absolutely. Everything that you own should be taken from you, and you should receive nothing for it. I absolutely am on board with that. No problem. So the BC government has already filed to seize this property because it was being used for illegal purposes. However, the respondent claims that he had no idea what was going on, that he simply just leased the property to Randhawa, and he had no clue. For all he knew, maybe Randhawa was, running a puppy mill rescue farm and was busy making little bonsai trees or something for sick children. He had no idea whatsoever that Canada's largest super drug lab in drug super lab in history was taking shape right on his own property and was in full operation, making poison to ruin tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives, not just in Canada, but in the US, because the majority of this crap ends up flooding US, Mexico, Australia, Europe, a whole lot of Falkland, BC. If you don't know what a Falkland is, just Google it. You'll be surprised. You'll be like, oh my God, that's where this super lab was? Like, it's likely not going to be what you probably are thinking, where you would find a super lab. Anyway, going back to the bill that the RCMP is stuck with. So like I say, the BC government has already filed a claim against the property, which they will win. They've been doing this a lot over the years, where these drug super labs, or just drug labs, or clubhouses used by known gang members, are, once they're broken up, are seized by the provincial government, along with cars and boats and all kinds of other, like jewelry, all kinds of other possessions that the bad people had. Anything that's a proceed of crime gets seized, and it should be, rightly so. So eventually the property will get turned over to the BC government. The property will get sold. Something tells me that this property in Falkland, BC is nowhere, even fully remediated, is nowhere near $3.6 million. So I don't know what it'll be worth when it sells, once it goes through the court system and the BC government finally gets a hold of it. It's impossible to know that right now, but I really don't think it's going to be anywhere near $3.6 million. So likely the RCMP is probably not going to see a dime from the BC government, because it probably won't be worth more than a few $100,000, even if it's worth $1 million. So again, $3.6 million, the RCMP is out just to clean up this drug lab that they busted wide open. That's not to include all of the cost for the investigation, for all of the members to conduct their investigation, the overtime, the surveillance, everything. So you add it all up, this is probably going to end up costing the RCMP somewhere around $5 million out of their budget, and that's probably conservative. You think about that. Why should they? I can see obviously why the investigation comes out of their budget, but why should the remediation come out of their budget? There should be a separate line item for that. These kinds of things, shouldn't be impacted by having to go in and hire a third-party private corporation who's going to charge big bucks, because this is dangerous work. Investigations, FIS, they shouldn't have to be impacted by this. It's not fair. The RCMP shouldn't have to do these investigations with the thought in the back of their head that, geez, if we pursue this, it's going to cost us $3.5 million. And don't freak out. I'm not in any way even remotely suggesting, even a little tiny bit remotely suggesting, that the RCMP would ever, or any police organization would ever, consider that as a condition of whether or not they pursue an investigation. That's obviously not true. Then that would never happen. However, it's really hard for the men and women in these positions to not think about it, especially when you're an administrator, like an assistant commissioner. That's your job, to manage the budget and make sure that your members have everything they need, including money. So it's obviously on their mind. It's not going to impact them taking action and doing what they need to do, but they think about it. They have to. Where are we going to make cuts? Okay. $3.6 million here, one investigation, in one jurisdiction, in one town in Canada. $3.6 million. They're being pressured by the Carney government to trim 2% of their overall budget. How? How do they do all of this and maintain safety? How do they do all this and maintain law and order? It doesn't make sense. But the Carney Liberals have no problem spending well over $1 billion, according to the Fraser Institute, to demonize, hassle, and otherwise make criminals out of otherwise honest, law-abiding citizens. They have no problem, the Carney Liberals have no problem spending $1 billion to go after innocent people and strip them of their legally acquired private property, of which they are licensed to obtain, own, and use. They have no problem with that. $1 billion plus. No problem. 60 plus resources being utilized from the RCMP, including not just administrative members, but active members, reg force members, actual law enforcement personnel, police officers that would be much better utilized investigating more crap like these super labs, investigating actual threats by firearms. And by that I mean illegal trafficking from the United States, illegal trafficking into Canada through the Port of Vancouver. They would be better utilized investigating the human trafficking rings that have all set up shop in the last decade under numbnut Trudeau. But no, 60 plus RCMP personnel, administrative and active duty members, for years now, going on 5 years, have been locked in a room behind a desk, figuring out ways that they can confiscate legally acquired private property from private citizens, figuring out ways how they can demonize them, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to marketing companies studying how they can utilize terminology and weaponize it to turn the general public against folks who use firearms. And that's a real thing too. The Carney Liberals actually spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with various different think tanks and marketing firms trying to figure out how they can craft a message that would turn the public against law-abiding firearms enthusiasts, specifically so they could get the people on side and figure out ways to demonize us, people who, like I said, have legally acquired the firearms that they own. They're licensed to own and operate the firearms that they own. They've been trained, they've taken courses, they've taken tests, they've been examined practically and by written exams to prove that they are safe. They undergo CPIC checks every 24 hours. A person who has a PAL, possession and acquisition license in Canada, I've spoken about that in several other videos. These people are scrutinized by the government every single day. Every single day their name gets run through the CPIC, the database. Make sure that they haven't done anything bad. And if they had, the police come down on them like a ton of bricks. And that's good. That's the way it should be, right? If you do something bad, then you're proving yourself not to be trustworthy, and you don't earn, or you don't deserve the privilege to own firearms. But you see where I'm going here, right? Like the Carney, the Trudeau Carney Liberals are, their priorities are so messed up. It makes no sense. Spend over $1 billion chasing down the most law-abiding, most helpful, most hardworking, most honest citizens in the country, and confiscating their legally acquired equipment, demonizing them among their fellow Canadians. That's their priority. That's the Trudeau-Carney Liberal priority. Chase down honest, hardworking Canadians and steal their property from them. In most cases, either without fair compensation or without compensation at all whatsoever. And some of these people have firearms that are worth thousands of dollars, and they're going to receive a pittance amount, or if anything at all. That's the priority of the Trudeau-Carney Liberals. Funding the RCMP to make sure they have everything they need to crack down on fentanyl dealers, fentanyl manufacturers, human traffickers, and the people that are trafficking illegal firearms into Canada from the United States, from other countries through the Port of Vancouver. Nah, forget that. Screw that. It's easier to go after honest, hardworking Canadians, and then we can release a whole bunch of statistics through StatsCan and say, oh, look what we did. We took hundreds of thousands of firearms off the streets. Asterisk. Out of the hands of the most honest, law-abiding citizens Canada's ever had. These people that have zero criminal records, have committed zero crimes. These are the people that the Trudeau-Carney Liberals are targeting. And they're spending over $1 billion to do it. The RCMP stops a super lab in its tracks, saves tens of thousands of lives by doing so, by stopping this fentanyl from ever even entering the market. A proactive action, which is exactly what we need, instead of reacting to drugs on the street that are getting into the hands of people who are addicted and can't stop or can't help themselves, can't stop themselves. Instead of being reactive like that, they're being proactive and stopping this stuff in its tracks before it even gets into circulation. That's where you want to spend the money. But the Carney says, nah, I don't want to do that. Screw that. And stupid cops, they can figure it out on their own. 3.6 million. Plus I want 2% out of their budget. You know what? Make it 4. Screw them. I don't care. We got all these private citizens, all these law-abiding citizens. That's who we can go after. Just think of how good the headlines will look. The Carney gets 100,000 firearms off the streets. Off the streets. Yeah. Not a single one of my firearms has ever been on the streets. So it doesn't have to get off the streets. Every single one of my firearms, when not in use, is tucked away safely, locked, secured, just like the law requires. And I go above and beyond what the minimum law requires, as do pretty much every firearms owner that I've ever encountered. Every single one of us. But yet, in the eyes of the Carney, in the eyes of Numbnut, apparently we're the most dangerous people in Canada. Not all of these, folks, these colored folks that come in and pour in through our borders, these military-aged people that form gangs as soon as they get here and have, a switched Glock in their hands within 3 days of arriving on Canada's shores and shooting up neighborhoods, shooting up elementary schools, murdering innocent people just out walking to the market or something to get milk one night. Yeah, don't go after those pieces of crap. Go after people like me. Makes perfect sense. That's the Carney's priorities. That was Trudeau's priorities. Okay, so keep that in mind. the next election, all you stupid ass gullible boomers out there, elbows up everybody, the Yuya crowd, elbows up your ass, Yuya. Every single one of you morons out there that voted for the carney because you're so gullible, you're so stupid, fell for that. You didn't vote for Canada's best interests. You voted because you were afraid of the big, mean, scary orange man from the south. You stupid freaking morons. Thanks to you, we got some idiot now calling himself the Prime Minister who's targeting innocent people, spending over $1 billion going after hundreds of thousands, millions actually, in fact, of innocent Canadians. Millions of innocent Canadians. This jackass is targeting innocent people. Over $1 billion spent. But won't help the RCMP investigate drug crimes. Won't help them investigate human trafficking, illegal weapons trafficking. No, screw that. Go after the private citizens. Yeah, Jesus. Jackass. Likely not going to be what you probably are thinking or picturing in your head, where you would find, Jesus, thanks FedEx, where you would find a super lab.